I guess the dry cathode, man, that's turned out to be a lot harder than we thought. It does look like it's going to be successful, and it will have some cost advantage relative to wet cathode. But if I had to wind the clock back, I would probably have gone with wet cathode instead of dry cathode, because it just turned out to be a lot harder to make it capable of high volume production with super high reliability. We will be scaling up battery cell production at Tesla and looking for cell production from our suppliers as well, because we're going to be ramping up production very dramatically at Tesla. So now that we believe we have full self-driving, that we have autonomy solved, or at least are within a few months of having unsupervised autonomy solved at a reliability level significantly better than human, that means it's time to ramp up production, because the value proposition is now much greater than a regular car. The killer app really is, people, can you text and drive, or can you sleep and drive? Can the car take you to a destination, or do you need to pay attention and have to drive it? And before we allow the car to be driven without paying attention, we need to make sure it's very safe. We're on the cusp of that. I know I've said that a few times, but we really are at this point, and you can feel it for yourselves with the 14.1 release. We're going to push to expand vehicle production as fast as we possibly can. So aspirationally, we'd aim to increase vehicle production by about 50% by the end of next year. It's very hard to increase production, but that's, maybe we get to, like, I'm just guessing, an exit rate by the end of next year of around 2.6, 2.7 million vehicles, annualized production, and then aim to get to maybe 4 million annualized rate by the end of 27, and then maybe 5 million by the end of 28. But those are our aspirational goals. This is a gigantic increase in output. It's not just a new chapter for Tesla, it's a new book. And that new book is massively increasing vehicle production and ramping up Optimus production faster than anything's ever been ramped up before in history. Chips and electricity are the two limiting factors.
And how big is a terafactory? Can you put that in scale? And
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the thing is that we actually have agreed to buy all the chips that are made from the fab. So it's basically a money printing machine for TSMC and Samsung. It's like literally, the faster you make the chips, the faster we send them money, but it's still not going fast enough. As far as I can see, the only option is to go build some like very big chip fab. And then you got to solve memory and packaging too. But otherwise, you just tap out at whatever the chip production rate is. You'd want to say it's got to be at least 100,000 wafer starts per month size fab, and maybe that would be one of 10 in a complex. So it would ultimately be 1 million wafer starts per month. Yeah, exactly. You can tell when it gets the giggle factor, that's probably a good sign that we're onto something special. But I wouldn't be surprised if long term it's like 1 million wafers a month. Cost per mile, I mean, we do see a path with a lot of work to get below 20 cents a mile in current year dollars. The total number of vehicles will decrease. If you add up all cars and trucks that are not at a scrapyard, I think it's around 2 billion. That number would decrease with autonomous vehicles. So the total fleet size would drop. I actually think miles driven will increase because it is now much less painful to travel somewhere. So if somebody's thinking about traveling across a busy city, then they'll take into account, well, how much pain do I have to deal with? If I have to go through 2 hours of traffic, I probably won't do it. But if you're just, say, sitting in a cybercab watching a movie or doing some work, then it's just like sitting in a little lounge. So I think you'll see probably a significant increase in total miles driven, but at the same time, a decrease in the total active fleet of vehicles. If you said down the road, would you be able to, with the Neuralink, have a snapshot, or at least an approximate snapshot of somebody's mind, and then upload that approximate snapshot to an Optimus body? I think that at some point that technology becomes possible. It's probably less than 20 years. But of course, you won't quite be the same, you know. Be a little different because you'll be in a robot body, and the mental snapshot will not be precise. It'll be probably pretty close, but not exactly the same. On the other hand, you know, are you the same person that you were 5 years ago? Nope. I mean, a lot of things have changed. Yeah, but I guess at some point, if you want to be uploaded to a robot body, my guess is that becomes possible. I do want to try to figure out some way for Tesla shareholders to participate in SpaceX. That would be very cool. There's a sort of 2,500 shareholder threshold for, you know, before you become a de facto public company. Maybe at some point SpaceX should become a public company, despite all the downsides of being public. You know, I'm a huge admirer of Jensen and NVIDIA. They've done amazing work, but they didn't want to do a low-cost, power-efficient car computer at the time, AI car computer. So I was like, well, okay, I guess we need to start a chip team to solve that. That's when I hired Jim Keller, and we built the chip team and did AI3, then AI4. And then, to be honest, we made some mistakes there with AI5, but now AI5 is back on track, and we'll have a very rapid cadence to AI6 and so forth. With AI4, I think we can get to 200 or 300% better than human safety, maybe 400% better. But with AI5, I think we can do 1,000% better, or maybe even better than that, than human safety. At a certain point, actually, it might be too much intelligence for a car. I was thinking, like, what if you get stuck in a car and you have too much intelligence? One of the things we could do is when the car is idle is use the car as a massive distributed AI inference fleet. You know, with the consent of customers, we're like, do you want your car to earn money for you while it's sitting in your garage at night? We'll pay $100 a month or $200 a month or whatever the right number is. If you allow Tesla to do AI inference workloads when you're not using your car. That will also help the AI in the car not get bored. Because like, I sort of imagine, like, what if I got stuck in a car? And then, and the highlight of your day was driving, you know, but they don't always want to drive, so then what do you do the rest of the time? Tesla might end up having the most amount of AI inference compute in the world. Like if you think, like, maybe if we had 100 million car fleet, and at some point we may have more than 100 million car fleet, and they'll have AI6, AI7. If you're able to run a kilowatt of inference on a 100 million car fleet, now you've got 100 gigawatts of distributed inference with built-in cooling and power electronics and distributed power. You know, probably the market's valuing that at 0.0 right now, is my guess, but it seems like an obvious thing to do. If you've got distributed inference AI and you've got the power and the cooling, which is very difficult to do the power and the cooling, and 100 gigawatts is a lot. I mean, you know, as I said, the average power consumption in the US, I think, is around 460 gigawatts that's the entire electrical consumption of the US. So if you did 100 gigawatts, that would be a pretty big number. Basically, something is a limiting factor, and then we take actions to address the limiting factor. The product unveiled will be of the Roadster 2, which will be very different from what was shown previously. That demo event will be April 1st of next year. I have some deniability because, like, I could say I was just kidding. But we are actually tentatively aiming for April 1st for what I think will be the most exciting, whether it works or not, demo ever of any product. And then I guess production is probably about 12 to 18 months after that. I mean, I think actually long term, the AI is going to be in charge, to be totally frank, not humans. If artificial intelligence vastly exceeds the sum of human intelligence, it is difficult to imagine that any humans will actually be in charge. We just need to make sure the AI is friendly.